Have you ever gotten bad news on the phone? Maybe your credit card company calling to confirm a charge, or your bank about suspicious activity on your account. And when you pick up the phone, all you hear is static. It's a spoofed caller ID. The call is automated. The real thing went to voicemail. It happens to all of us. And each time, your heart skips a beat. For a split second, the possibility that something terrible is happening registers in your brain. Then you exhale and relax. Your body does it all in a matter of seconds. Your heart rate spikes, then drops, your muscles tense, then relax. And you don't even consciously notice it. Well, guess what? The exact same thing just happened to you, your body betraying you into thinking you had just encountered a genuine threat, when in reality, it was just another benign ping from the machine. Because your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a simulated one. It reacts to the context. In that moment, the phone call was an unknown number. Unknown. It could have been anyone. That's all your body knew. And that's enough to trigger a response. Here's another test. Who comes to mind when you think of a serial killer? Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. What kind of person do you imagine these men were? Charismatic, handsome, trustworthy. Well, it turns out the person you're imagining is far more likely to be an acquaintance or a close friend. Between 2006 and 2012, 73% of murders in America were committed by someone known to the victim. Most serial killers lure their victims into submission with a veneer of normalcy. They smile, they shake hands, they are the epitome of affability. The key word here is familiarity. That's the context. A nice guy breaking into your home with a gun and handcuffs? Definitely a threat. A nice guy holding your child's hand as he leads her onto a bus? Clearly not. The same action performed by someone with tattoos, a shaved head and a prison tattoo, now you're scared again. Context. Serial killer, kidnapping victim, mafia boss, mobster. These are two completely different groups of people, yet they are both associated with the same act. Holding hands, a sign of affection in the first scenario, a sinister gesture in the second. But neither is a lie. Both are telling the truth. One is just acting with evil intent. Same action, vastly different context, wildly different interpretations. The takeaway: you cannot possibly understand another person without understanding their environment. If you want to know if someone is lying, you have to immerse yourself in their world. Live it, breathe it, sleep it until you feel it in your bones. And then, and only then, start asking questions. Let's come back to that fateful traffic stop. Pull a cop over and accuse him of misconduct and watch him explode with indignation. Call a mobster into a boardroom and he'll keep his cool. The same is true of a defendant in court. Put a man on trial for a crime he didn't commit, and the fear that he can't show without revealing his innocence will turn him ashen, shaking, stammering. Or put him in a courtroom where he's defended by a Johnny Cochran type who tells him to embrace the crazy. Watch him become outrageously animated, shouting expletives, professing his absolute innocence. His behavior is the same. The context is radically different. The effect on the jury is radically different. Let's try something else. Think of a great friend of yours, someone you'd trust with your life. Now imagine getting a text message from them saying, "Hey, can you loan me $1,000? Your reaction, instant, immediate. No problem. How much? What do you need it for? Right? A guy you wouldn't trust to buy milk for you at the corner store, same request. Hey, can you loan me $1,000? Your reaction, far different. Suddenly you're calculating interest rates and collateral. You're analyzing whether it's a reasonable sum to lend. You're bargaining. I got $800. Would that work? The guy says, "Yeah, that's great. Thanks." And you're already mentally writing it off as a loss. Same request, same amount, two totally different contexts, two totally different reactions. When you borrow money from a stranger, you're in transaction mode. Even if the guy in front of you is your best friend, you're engaging in a risk analysis because the stakes are higher. You don't know him well enough to trust him with money without it. Trust is earned through shared experiences, mutual vulnerability, years of consistent support. You can't fake trust. If you're not willing to invest in that, you have nothing to measure against. Just like a bank statement, you can't determine a surplus or a deficit if you haven't recorded any transactions. The big problem with the popular lie detection method is that it throws away the context, the emotional landscape, the history. It makes you a financial analyst trying to balance a spreadsheet instead of a detective trying to solve a crime. There is no such thing as a universal lie detector because there is no such thing as a universal human experience. Everyone is trapped inside their own context, their own version of the truth. You don't see the whole picture. You're trying to identify a lie based on the equivalent of one data point. You need the baseline. And the only way to get that is to immerse yourself in the context, to understand a person's history, their relationships, their associations, their fears, their ambitions, their dreams. Understand who they are and why they might lie. That's your baseline. Then ask your questions. And don't just ask them, listen to the cadence of their speech, to what they emphasize, how they phrase things. Listen to what they don't say. Look for signs of hesitation, signs of struggle, signs of what a particular culture tells us is acceptable to say and what's not. When you do this, you can begin to read between the lines, to differentiate between someone who's trying to hide the truth and someone who's trying to reveal it. Let me tell you about another mistake I see rookie lie detectors make all the time. They forget that people lie to themselves first. It's a concept we call self-deception. Self-deception is a remarkably adaptive trait. Sometimes it keeps us safe. Say you're a pilot who sees a warning light on an instrument panel. The plane is in perfectly smooth air. The flight is flawless. But that light, it's a distraction, a potential catastrophe waiting to happen. Instead of panicking and making matters worse, you push it out of your mind. I'm sure it's just a glitch, right? A pilot who can't deceive himself succumbs to panic and crashes the plane. I'm not suggesting we should all willingly deceive ourselves. I'm just pointing out that we are capable of it, and sometimes we do it to protect ourselves from the truth. The problem for lie detectors is that we don't always know when someone is deceiving themselves or even that they are. After all, when the most crucial piece of evidence is the one refusing to look in the mirror, here's what you need to remember. When you encounter a potential lie, always try to figure out what that person might be trying to convince themselves of first. Ask yourself, what would I rather not be true? As a detective, I used to spend hours building a profile of a perpetrator. These days, thanks to new technology, that work is done for me in minutes. They want to know if someone is a hacker. The algorithm can scan their digital footprint in milliseconds. Want to know if someone's involved in the cartels? It can pull banking records and associate networks. The past is splattered all over the internet. But there's a big problem with this form of shortcut lie detection. It doesn't work unless you have a reason to suspect something in the first place. Like I said earlier, you can't determine a surplus unless you have a baseline, an absence of suspicion. You don't know what you don't know. It's the old adage. If you assume you're innocent, you're likely to stay that way. What you need is a lie detector that works proactively, that helps you avoid lies rather than passively detects them. And that starts with knowing yourself. Don't rely on somebody to tell you who you are. Let me explain. Many years ago, I was hired by a major pharmaceutical company. A leading researcher was accused of falsifying results. The company brought me in to conduct an investigation. After reviewing the evidence, I was skeptical. All the reports of misconduct were coming from junior researchers. The star researcher's reputation was solid. There was zero incentive for him. So, let me ask you. Have you ever read a story in the news about a person who got caught lying and you thought to yourself, I would have never fallen for that lie? I would have seen right through it. Yet when it came to your own relationships, your own decisions, your own investigations, you fell prey to the same lies you would have easily spotted in a stranger. It's easy to be smug when it's someone else's lie. I got you there. Most of us think we're good at spotting lies because we've seen too many crime shows. We've all become armchair behavioral detectives. But in real life, the lies we fall for are almost always invisible to us because they happen within the context of our own emotional bias. 99% of the time, when we're investigating a lie, we're not observing a detached event. We have a stake in the outcome. We have an emotional investment. And that means we tend to misread the signals we're seeing. This is why 70% of business leaders fall for management lies, why 42% of romantic partners are duped each year into thinking their relationship is on the rocks, why 68% of jurors admit to having been misled by false evidence in court. In each of these cases, people are not failing at lie detection. They are succeeding at being misled. They're falling for invisible lies because of the contexts that make them invisible. In today's lesson, we're going to turn that around. We're going to see why and how people hide their lies. Why the best way to spot a lie is to make it easier to tell the truth. Why the biggest lies are usually the hardest to believe. And how to use the weaponization of truth to find the truth. This isn't just a refresher course. If you want to make sure that no one is manipulating you, if you want to make sure that you're not the one doing the manipulating, then this information is crucial. This is how you win arguments, how you dominate negotiations, and how you dig to the truth. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that liars are not always the worst liars. The best liars are the ones who have never been challenged before. There's a beautiful statistic from Oxford University research. People who have been explicitly taught and coached in the arts of deception are successful only 30% of the time. 90% of the time, the worst liars are successful. Those are the untrained liars, the amateurs. This is why your instincts so often fail you. They're comparing apples to oranges. Your intuition is judging a skilled liar against an unskilled liar. So, let me give you some pointers. First, identify their baseline. Look for changes in behavior. Look for inconsistencies. Don't judge their baseline against the average liar. Judge it against them. Second, control the context. Don't let them set the stage. You want to control the lighting, the seating arrangement, even the temperature. Because the more comfortable a liar is in the context, the better able they are to stick to their story. Third, ensure safety. Give the person reason to trust you. If they perceive that they're in danger, they're going to default to self-preservation. And if that means protecting themselves with a lie, they're going to do it. Now, that last point, the importance of safety, brings us to the phenomenon I call the lie amplifier. Now, you must have experienced this. A manager calls you into their office. You know something's coming. As they speak, your anxiety rises, your breathing accelerates, your heart pounds, your mind races. Now, imagine that manager is a sociopath. They're hunting for weakness. They're watching your every move, looking for a flaw in your story so they can pounce. Their tone is flat, their gaze unwavering. Now, imagine the same scene, but you're innocent. Your anxiety stems from a place of fear, not guilt. It's amplified by the perception of threat. In both cases, your physiological response is the same. Your brain is flooding your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate is rising. Your palms are sweating. But in one case, the physiological signal is tied to a real lie. In the other, it's tied to a true statement. In effect, the context of the situation is amplifying whatever the underlying truth is. This is why an innocent person can appear guilty, and a guilty person can appear innocent. The key, then, is to realize that the more threatened a person feels, the less likely they are to reveal the truth. And this is not just an abstract psychological concept. It has serious implications. This is why the CIA spends millions training interrogators. This is why studies show that lawyers who are more aggressive in the courtroom actually end up hurting their clients' chances of winning. This is why the majority of U.S. juries are misled by eyewitness testimony. The threat of danger supersedes the accuracy of memory. In each case, the pursuit of justice, the desire to win, the quest for efficiency is trumped by the individual's need to survive. They will protect themselves even if it means distorting the truth. So how do you cut through the lies in a world where everyone is incentivized to deceive you? You do two things. First, disarm them. Make them feel safe. Make it easy for them to tell the truth. This doesn't mean you condone lying, but you have to acknowledge the reality of human nature. People are not just rational agents. They are emotional, fearful, instinctual creatures. And those instincts kick in long before their rational brain can calculate the consequences of lying. So you need to break the cycle of fear. You need to take steps to reduce the threat so that the truth can bubble up. This is why I always insist on speaking to witnesses in a quiet room away from the commotion. It's why I suggest couples argue in writing, putting pen to paper before engaging in face-to-face discussions. It's why I train executives to be more empathetic with their employees before making a big decision. Threat reduction is not about being weak. It's about understanding the foundation of human behavior. Second, weaponize the truth. This is the trickiest part because it involves changing the incentives of the situation. If you want the truth, you have to make it easier to tell the truth than to lie. You have to subvert their motivation for deception. This is why I often tell suspects that they are not in trouble, that I'm just gathering background information. This is why I encourage people to write down their thoughts instead of speaking them aloud. Writing gives them a chance to carefully select the words they use. That selection process filters out much of the dishonesty. This is also why I advise companies that when making major corporate decisions, they should gather written feedback from all levels of employees, not just the upper echelons. The lower rungs often have the most valuable insights, but they are hesitant to share them in a room full of higher-ups. Written feedback allows them to speak freely. Now, writing does not neutralize emotions. It's not a replacement for empathy. It's simply a tool for controlling the context. So, ask yourself this. How often have you demanded the truth and inadvertently driven someone to lie to you? How often have you misunderstood the source of someone's anxiety? Have you ever taken a piece of bad news and amplified it into a catastrophe? Or a small lie and turned it into a massive betrayal? These are the moments when the instinct for the truth turns into a hunger for vengeance. And that hunger is blind. You may think you're demanding the truth, but you're really demanding a pound of flesh. The difference is important because truth, like justice, can be elusive. It often hides from us. It doesn't always present itself in a neat, coherent package. Truth is not the absence of deception. It's the presence of meaning. To find the truth, you must cultivate the ability to detect deception. Yes, but also the ability to read the contextual cues that shape the meaning of any signal. The ability to recognize when a lie is easy to tell, when a truth is hard to admit, and above all, the courage to create a context where the truth has more room to breathe than a lie does. And that's exactly what we're going to teach you in the next chapter. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. In the past few sessions, we've explored 3 forms of deception. First, we looked at micro-expressions and other body language cues. Second, we examined flawed lie detectors. And third, we learned how to spot lies in ourselves. Each of those topics could be its own deep dive. Each can give you a valuable new lens through which to view the world. But today, I want to bring them together and show you how to combine all of these skills into a practical system for handling difficult conversations. It's an approach that has helped me deliver tough messages to clients like the CEO of a Fortune 100 company and nervous job candidates and everyone in between. Here is how to find the truth when nobody is telling it to you. The goal in every conversation is to reduce uncertainty. Our brains hate uncertainty. It generates stress, anxiety, even panic. So the first step in every discussion is to name that stress. Say out loud what many people are afraid to even acknowledge. I know this is a stressful conversation, but that acknowledgement alone reduces some of the tension. The second step is to identify the uncertainty that is causing the stress. In business school, they teach you to define the problem clearly. What is the ROI? What is the competitive advantage? They forget to teach you that most problems are defined poorly. If somebody says, "How much should I charge for this project?" that isn't a well-defined question. It has nothing to do with price. It has everything to do with value. You need to reframe the question to expose the real uncertainty. Why do you want to charge more? Is it because you want to squeeze every last penny from your client? Or is it because you genuinely believe the project is worth the money? Are you trying to maximize profit or maximize impact? Exposing the real uncertainty behind the question is also a way to identify the liar. If someone dodges the question or gives a canned answer, they may not actually know what they want. That alone doesn't prove deception, but it's a good indication that the person hasn't done the hard work of introspection. It's time to push back on the superficial question, and the key to doing that is to listen. Listen carefully to what is said, but pay even closer attention to what isn't said. Here is a framework to help you get to the core of what people are really saying. Step 1. Identify the facts. Start with the objective details of the situation. Step 2. Ask for feelings. Dig deeper to understand the emotions motivating the discussion. Step 3. Confirm understanding. Paraphrase what you heard to confirm that you understood the underlying meaning. Using this approach, you can handle conversations that might otherwise be dominated by nonsense. Here is a simple example. Imagine you run an e-commerce site and your credit card processing rates suddenly spike. When you ask your provider about it, the only response you get is this: "We use industry-leading encryption and security protocols." That statement says nothing. It's irrelevant to your problem. Don't accept it. Dig deeper. Push back and ask for feelings. How did the increase happen? Who was affected? What is the team doing to fix it? Then paraphrase to confirm that you understand their position. So it sounds like the increase happened due to increased traffic and you're working on fixing it. By using this approach, you cut through the BS and arrive at a more productive conversation. That's what I call bullshit detection. But the opposite is also true. Sometimes people are hiding the truth, not just from others, but from themselves. You can recognize this behavior by looking for signs of defensiveness, denial, or confusion. Take a family business I worked with. The father, George, believed he was grooming his son to succeed him. But the truth was that George didn't want to retire. He loved his work too much, so he was subconsciously sabotaging the son. During a coaching session, I asked the son how the transition was going. Was his father giving him opportunities to learn the ropes? The son gave a confused answer. He hadn't really thought about it. It wasn't happening. So I pushed a bit. "Do you want to take over the business?" "Well, yes, but I also want to do my own thing." Clearly there was tension. This was not a simple, straightforward answer. This is where advanced bullshit detection comes in. You can smell a lie or a cover-up. There are 3 signs. 1. Inconsistency. The answer shifted away from the original question. 2. Vagueness. He didn't give a clear, concise answer. And 3. Emotion. There was a hint of defensiveness in his tone. George had denied the truth about his intentions and was now covering it up with an inconsistent, vague, and defensive response. In that moment, I knew something was off. Later, after talking to George, I realized that he was deeply afraid of retirement. He had convinced himself that he was grooming his son, but the truth was that he didn't want to leave the business. Identifying these signs of bullshit allows you to dig deeper into conversations to find the underlying truth. It's the difference between asking, "How much does this cost?" and "Why should I care about this?" And while identifying bullshit is a powerful skill, it takes practice and experience to master. The same is true for reading micro-expressions and spotting lies in yourself. None of these abilities are innate. They are learned skills. We study them, we practice them, we refine them. No one is born knowing how to read a facial micro-expression. That ability is developed. So as we close out our sessions, let me say this. There is no quick fix in the battle against bullshit. There is no magic bullet, no app, no widget that can save you. There is, however, a path forward. A path based on introspection, confrontation, and a deep desire to seek the truth. When you walk that path, you become less vulnerable to the world's greatest liar, the one who knows you best, the one whose lies are the most convincing, the one who is comfortable in your own skin. Congratulations! You've reached the end of another session. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button below. Leave a comment and let me know what you thought. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. We've come a long way. We've systematically dismantled the flimsy, dangerous myths about lie detection you've been fed your whole life. We've learned that culture provides the software, context provides the operating system, and our own self-deception is the ghost in the machine. We know that professional techniques are about gathering information, not landing a gotcha moment. So, what now? This is the point where the real work begins. This is not a party trick you learn in 5 minutes from an internet video. This is a skill, a discipline, forged over time through deliberate, patient practice. You can't learn to be a master observer in 5 minutes. The good news is that you already have the raw material. You already possess the capacity to make nuanced observations. If you watch TV, if you have friends, if you pay attention to the world around you, you already know how to pick up on subtle changes in a person's tone, in their demeanor, in their body language. What's lacking is not your innate ability, but your confidence and your vocabulary in expressing it. And those things are acquired through deliberate practice and feedback. So, what's the first step? In a nutshell, it's calibration. You cannot spot an anomaly until you first understand what is normal. Every individual has their own unique behavioral baseline. This is their normal way of being in a relaxed, non-threatening environment. It's their typical speech cadence, their default posture, their normal level of eye contact, their common gestures. A lie isn't revealed by a specific sign like a nose touch or shifty eyes. A lie is revealed by a deviation from a person's established baseline when a stimulus, a specific question or topic, is introduced. The nervous, fidgety person who is always nervous and fidgety is telling you nothing. But the calm, stoic person who suddenly becomes nervous and fidgety when you mention the missing financial reports, that's where you start digging. So how do you build this skill? You start with a baseline journal. This is your field work. Pick 3 to 5 people you interact with regularly. A coworker, your spouse, the cashier at your grocery store. For the next month, your only job is to observe and take notes. Do not try to detect lies. Do not try to be clever. Just be a scientist collecting data. When you talk to them, what is their normal posture? How fast do they talk? Do they use their hands a lot? What's their blink rate? How do they behave when they're happy, stressed about a deadline, or just tired? You are building a rich, detailed catalog of their normal. You are calibrating your instruments to that specific person. Here's why this is so important. Let's say you walk into a room and see a young couple holding hands, laughing, and looking deeply in love. An untrained mind might assume that they're sharing a deep connection. But if you calibrate your instruments to that couple, you might notice a few deviations from their usual baseline. The husband is touching his wife more than usual. He's making jokes that aren't funny. And she's giggling uncontrollably. Suddenly, you're seeing not a loving relationship, but a carefully constructed performance meant to hide a different reality. Calibration is how you transition from a naive view of the world to a more realistic, grounded understanding. It's not about cynicism. It's about realism. I once worked a case at a large financial firm where information was being leaked to a competitor. All eyes were on a slick, charismatic salesman who was almost cartoonishly suspicious. But he was a red herring. My focus went to a quiet accountant in the corner, a man named Bill. My baseline for Bill, established over a week of observation, was one of meticulous order. His posture was perfect. His speech was precise. The pens on his desk were always arranged in a perfectly parallel line. For weeks, that baseline was unshakable. Then one afternoon, I walked past his desk and saw his pens were scattered. To anyone else, it would be nothing. To me, it was a seismic event. It was a crack in the baseline. I didn't confront him. I approached him later with a cup of coffee and started a casual conversation about the weather, then baseball. His answers were clipped. His blink rate was up. These were more deviations. The stimulus wasn't my questions, it was some internal pressure he was under. That tiny observation, the scattered pens, was the thread that unraveled the entire conspiracy. Bill was being blackmailed by the salesman into providing the data. The charismatic salesman's baseline was to be a smooth liar, so he showed no tells. It was the honest, meticulous man whose deviation from his true baseline gave the game away. Observation alone is not enough. You need a feedback loop. After you observe a deviation and form a hypothesis, I think my boss was evasive about the budget because he's hiding bad news. You must find a way to verify it. Don't let your gut feelings remain untested theories. Check the facts later. Ask a clarifying question the next day. This is crucial. When you're right, you reinforce a correct pattern in your mind. When you're wrong, you learn an even more valuable lesson about the ambiguity of human behavior. This is neuroplasticity in action. You are physically rewiring your brain, strengthening the neural pathways for accurate social perception. You are training your intuition to move from a wild guess to an educated inference. This is how the skill moves from the slow, clunky, conscious part of your brain to the fast, automatic, and reliable part. So, are you a passive consumer of behavior, jumping to conclusions based on gut feelings? Or are you willing to become an active, patient scientist of the human condition, willing to do the slow work of observation and verification? We laid that groundwork in Part 1. Now it's time to begin field work. And as we've seen, the first step of that is calibration. You want to cultivate your capacity to make detailed observations and then test them. But that's only half of it. In Part 3, we're going to look at the other critical component of the skill set, adaptability. That's where we develop the mental agility to account for the infinite variability of human interactions. I'll see you then.